I'll just paraphrase what one of our brethren said to me one time, because I think it really does encapsulate exactly what's going on here. Basically, it was, we're in favor of local control as long as we control the locals.
Democrats continue to blast Republicans over the redistricting of county maps. Good evening and welcome to Lawmakers on this legislative day 14. I'm Donna Lowry. More on today's debate in the Senate over maps coming up. We'll also hear more on issues involving health care for women in Georgia. What's behind the increase in pregnant women choosing to have home births? Will licensing and registering more midwives in the state help? Also, the bipartisan mental health bill includes a provision for Medicaid coverage. What's that all about? We'll find out. And one senator wants to allow drivers to use their cell phones when at a full stop at stoplights and stop signs, while another legislator is pushing for ways to increase participation for minorities and women in state contracts. We'll talk about all of those issues with our guests after getting the latest on the day at the Capitol with correspondent Brenda Waters. Hi, Brenda.
Hey, Donna, busy day in the Senate. 9 bills were passed, from Lieutenant Governor Duncan's A Less Crime Act to a charter school pilot program that would allow adults to achieve their high school diploma, to East Cobb cityhood. But one bill in particular continues to come up for debate. Last week, the substitute for House Bill 873 passed in the House and immediately went to the Senate. Today in the Senate, Democrats in the Gwinnett delegation made one last attempt to insert their original maps into the bill.
We went through a process to get the original Board of Commissioner proposals. We worked on that for months. We engaged the community. We had the town halls, on both bipartisan town halls, so everyone was aware of the map that we proposed and voted out. And in a matter of 3 days, the map was changed. We were not aware of the changes. We had not talked about the changes, nor did we engage the public in those changes.
That attempt failed. You may recall, this is the bill that would revise the district boundaries for the Gwinnett County Board of Commissioners. The Senate voted, and the bill passed along party lines. In a similar fight, the Augusta-Richmond County delegation battling over the same issue with Senate Bill 457. Republicans in the delegation didn't feel like their concerns were being heard by the local ad hoc committee deciding redistricting.
The representative from the 124th and myself met with the director of the Legislative Office of Redistricting and Reapportionment, and asked that she provide an alternative map that really did 3 things. It must be fully compliant with all legal requirements. It should minimize the number of precinct splits, and it should keep communities of interest and neighborhoods together and whole as much as possible. And they did that. And the senator from the 22nd took that proposal. He took it to the Augusta-Richmond County Ad Hoc Committee on Redistricting, and they declined to consider it. And in January the 6th, the delegation met with the commission. And those of us who had concerns communicated that we could not support their recommendation, and we asked them to work with us repeatedly. They never chose to engage.
Senator Harold Jones, who represents the area and was part of the negotiations, says that the issue appears to be more about who devised the new map.
Whether the map is a perfect map or not a perfect map, it went through the process. It's a democratic process. At some point in time, we have to start respecting African-American elected officials, and when they do the process and say that we're going to respect it, and that's what we're going to do. This was a total disrespect of it. It's a total trope, quite frankly, when you start talking about persons didn't do work or persons didn't take their time to do things. These are the same type of tropes that we've had throughout history when it comes to African-American leadership, and that is also a fact.
Is it not true, Senator, that the study committee made 0 changes to the initial map that was proposed.
That's absolutely true, because that was a determination that they did after 5 maps. If you remember correctly, they actually did 3 other plans. So they had the original plan, and they looked at 3 others. And that's a decision that they made. It's not a decision for any one person to unilaterally determine that they made the wrong decision.
Is it not true, Senator, that the committee never realistically considered any alternative
Absolutely,
to the
that's
first
not
draft?
true. That is not true.
Ultimately, the bill was passed 32-22 along party lines. And also, like Gwinnett, the new school board district maps were a point of contention when Senate Bill 458 was presented.
I would point out that the study committee indeed had multiple hearings. They accepted enormous amounts of input and then chose to ignore it. They did not adjust the map at all. They took an initial draft, and because it provided a certain opportunity, they pushed it forward, and they ignored the people of the community.
What are we doing? I mean, seriously, what are we doing? We are tearing this body apart across the hall. They're tearing that body apart. In the name of what? Being able to take local decisions out of the hands of duly elected officials?
And that bill passed 31-22. House Bill 430 was a hit in the House, passing unanimously 162-0. It was introduced by Representative Alan Powell, who is the chair of Regulated Industries. The bill would allow the state nursing board to license APRNs, or Advanced Practice Registered Nurses.
Right now, currently, the licensing board, the nurses licensing board, authorizes LPNs and registered nurses. This takes it a step forward to allow those that have credentials that are considered to be APRNs and those other nurses that fall within that guideline to be specifically licensed as an APRN. Georgia has about 19,000 APRNs, as I understand it. Because of the shortage of medical practitioners, these APRNs are critical, just as the PAs are in this day and time.
HB 430 would also allow APRNs and physician's assistants to issue handicap placards. And it was New American Celebration Day at the state capitol. It was the 9th annual event under the Gold Dome where immigrants celebrate their citizenship. We want to congratulate all of our new citizens. And Donna, can you say cream cheese? It's National Cream Cheese Brownie Day. Sorry to say, I didn't have one. That's my Capitol report. Back to you.
It means you didn't bring me one, too. Okay. Thanks,
I didn't
Brenda.
have one to bring.
All right. Thanks, Brenda.
Okay.
We're going to explore health-related bills under the Gold Dome for a few minutes now. Joining me are Democratic Representative Park Cannon of Atlanta and Andy Miller, CEO and editor of Georgia Health News. Welcome to Lawmakers, to both of you. Representative Cannon, you've gone to the House floor recently to talk about the importance of midwives and doulas. Before I ask about that, I want to show our viewers some statistics, okay? Home births are on the rise. A national vital statistics report shows since 2019, they're up 22% nationwide, and that's even higher in Georgia, 29%. Georgia ranks 15th among states with the largest increase of women deciding to give birth at home. And of course, the pandemic is one reason for the increase. Some people haven't just wanted to go to hospitals to have their babies. But can you tell us a little bit about what might be behind this? Anything else?
What we know is that it's cheaper for you to have a birth at home. And also we've seen throughout the pandemic that people are afraid of going to hospitals. We know that at the same time, the maternal mortality numbers have shown that when you are in hospitals, interventions increase. And right now, you're not able to have a support person with you. You can have one partner, but you can't also have a doula, or also your mama, or also your auntie who gave birth. You can choose one. And so though your husband might be well-intentioned, he might not know what to do if your eyes are turning colors or your fever's going up. And so doulas and midwives, we're the community line of defense. We're not that expensive, and we've been on the front lines since birth has happened.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that this is tied to maternal mortality issues too. And here are some of those numbers. Half of Georgia's counties have no OBGYNs. Nearly half of labor and delivery facilities have closed in the last 2 years. Georgia has the worst maternal mortality rate in America. And one thing to note, African American women make up the majority of pregnancy-related deaths. And so I want to further talk to you about a bill you have that deals with midwives, HB 806.
That's right. So we've put it in the Health Committee because we squarely believe that this is an issue that healthcare professionals should be discussing. Over the years, there's been a misconception whether or not midwives are trained enough. Are they professional enough? In fact, what we've seen is that they're trained in emergency care even more so than some providers in hospitals who are able to send that care off to a nurse or a practitioner. These midwives and these labor doulas, like I am myself, we understand if someone is low risk and things change, we're ready to refer out. And 97% of births are actually normal. So we're hopeful that people will start to see that it's less cost bearing on the state, that families are choosing this and electing it for themselves. And the way that birth is going in the state of Georgia because of maternal mortality numbers, we need to go ahead and help license midwives. In fact, every other state surrounding us does. Tennessee and North and South Carolina, Mississippi and Alabama, they allow for direct entry midwives to come in and to be that first line of care by paying for it through Medicaid.
Yeah. So we talked about these statistics, Andy. They're so depressing when it comes to maternal mortality in the state. But there is hope in that the legislature seems to be doing something about it. We saw something happen this week in the Senate when it came to a bill. Tell us more about it.
Well, more than half of the births in our state are covered by Medicaid. So this is an awful lot of women that are covered by this program. And what the state Senate did was approve a bill that essentially extends that Medicaid coverage for moms who just gave birth from 6 months to a year. And the goal, obviously, is to address the maternal mortality problem that we definitely have a big problem with. It's rural women, it's African American women who are more impacted and suffer more in terms of these deaths than others. And so it was passed unanimously, and I think that's a good sign for it ultimately getting the same type of support in the House.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. You think the House will accept it the same way in terms of almost unanimous? I think
we're good. I think we're good. When it passed before, we were at 6 weeks postpartum care, and we pushed it to 6 months. The federal government came in and gave us a little more leeway during the pandemic, but we always said it's time for the state to act, push it to 1 year. So we're excited, and I think the House will pass it.
And the governor said he will sign it, so that's good. I want to talk about a story you did in Georgia Health News that talks about a provision in that 74-page bipartisan mental health bill. It will require insurers to provide coverage for mental health care, and for substance abuse treatment at the same level as other physical health needs. Talk about that.
Well, there's been a federal parity law for quite some time, but it really hasn't been enforced. And this would put some teeth into that enforcement here in Georgia. Quite often, health plans will put up more barriers in terms of getting mental health care, in terms of co-pays and networks and things like that, and substance abuse care. This would hopefully correct that situation.
Treating mental health and substance abuse like physical health issues. And it has bipartisan support, so that one looks good. I want to get back to you, Representative Park Cannon. Let's talk about another bill you had, You introduced it during the last biennial session, and you want to bring it back.
Yes, we're excited. We're going to bring it back and put it in the health committee. Ideally, it will be assigned there, but it's about implicit bias in healthcare. We know that over the years, people have made the concession that there's bias sometimes when you see someone that you don't quite know their lived experience, or they might look like someone that you don't really know, or they might speak a different language than you've ever heard before. And so you might just not treat them the same way that you might treat someone in your family. We want to root that out in Georgia because we've seen that people who are giving birth have suffered from that.
Yeah, and that bill initially included immigrants, right?
Oh, certainly.
Covering them by this, too.
It talked about race, it talked about origin and language. And, you know, as a Spanish speaker down at the state capitol, sometimes people come and they share their stories in English. And as soon as they can switch to Spanish, they're really talking the issues out. So this bill will help us root out the prejudices that people might have if they're in a perinatal work setting, meaning they're around a family who's giving birth. And ideally, this would be in every perinatal birth setting, but we've got to see about the fiscal note on that one.
Okay, well, keep us up to date on that one. And Andy, you had a story today in the AJC, and it dealt with the feds coming down hard on some Georgia hospitals, 21 of them. Explain what that was all about.
Basically, this is an annual program by CMS or Medicare to penalize the hospitals that have the highest rates of infections and patient injuries within the hospital during their stays. This could be a MRSA infection, this could be any number of surgical infections, things like that. If a hospital has a high number of them, they could get dinged or penalized 1% of their Medicare reimbursements. And it goes across the country, and there's something like 700 hospitals that are affected by this.
And I asked you this before. This had nothing to do with the pandemic. This was before the pandemic.
Yeah, the statistics in this report came out before the pandemic really got started.
So people who are hurt in the hospital, get infections in the hospital, this is what this is looking for, and making sure these hospitals are held accountable for it. 21, where are they located?
Well, they're really all over the state, in Metro Atlanta, Augusta, Columbus, and some mid-sized markets as well. I think there's been a real trend to try to improve quality in healthcare overall. And this is one way the feds are doing it within the hospital's walls.
We're glad to hear it. We're always glad to have you here, and thank you for coming on the show, Representative Camden. Coming up, we'll talk to the lawmaker who wants to amend the state's hands-free law to allow phone use at a stoplight or a stop sign. And we'll learn about a bill to increase minority participation in state and federal contracts. You're watching Lawmakers on GTV.
Cigna is a proud partner of Georgia Public Broadcasting and Georgia Lawmakers. Cigna's mission is to improve the health, well-being, and peace of mind of those we serve. More at Cigna.com to learn how you can help support your employees' physical and emotional well-being.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
Georgia Humanities, connecting people and communities across Georgia to encourage conversation, education, and understanding. Find out more at www.georgiahumanities.org.
We are the Southern Environmental Law Center. At SELC, we not only take on the toughest environmental challenges, we win, forcing the removal of more than 250 million tons of toxic coal ash, defeating repeated attempts to bring offshore drilling to our coasts, and securing clean air and water protections for communities across our region. Your most powerful environmental defender is rooted right here in the South.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. We're going to look now at two bills our guests would like to see become laws this session. Joining me are Republican Senator Frank Ginn of Danielsville, which is in Madison County, and Democratic Representative Roger Bruce of Atlanta. Both are longtime legislators. Representative Bruce since 2003. 2003. And Chairman Ginn since 2010, huh?
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
so
Great
you got lots to talk about, so we're going to do that. Representative Bruce, on Monday you had a bill, HB 78.
Yes.
It went to the House Governmental Affairs Committee, and you say you've been working on that bill for 10 years. That's why I talked about how long you've been doing this. It deals with increasing diversity in state contracts for minority and women-owned business owners. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we've been trying to get this, as you said, for a long time. And we're in a situation where we're trying to make it a bipartisan effort. It's born out of something that took place back in the late 1960s with the creation of the Department of Business Empowerment. And then it went on and it became the Department of Developmental, it's a developmental agency that still exists out of Washington, D.C. now. And then about 4 or 5 years ago in Georgia, the Department of Transportation also came up with a purchasing plan that was to monitor state spending and make sure that a certain portion of that state spending went to minority-owned businesses.
What is that percentage?
And he probably has a better number, but the number has not been met, is the bottom line. And so what we're trying to do is create now a department that would look at all state agencies and do basically the same thing they had to do back then for the Department of Transportation. There was federal money that was available, but they couldn't get the federal money unless they had a purchasing plan. And this would create a department within state government that would look at purchasing and come up with what the goals should be based on the need. That's why I wasn't sure what they did in that department.
Chairman Ginn,
overall, we want to do that.
Chair of the Transportation Committee right now in the Senate, but you were around back when this went through under Governor Nathan Deal.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that a little bit.
The bill that I think Representative Bruce is talking about is HB 170. There was a portion of that bill that dealt with minority enterprises and bidding. One of the things that, and I'm all for, hey, any time we can have more competitive contracts in the state to look after the taxpayers' money, we want to do that. Said, I will tell you, said, when we look at those contracts, we base those on merit. I don't believe that legislation called for a finite number or percentage exactly. But it's one of those goals that we strive to do in state government is to give people opportunity. And that's where anything we can do to encourage more bidders and more people that are replying to a need in the state, we're all better served.
Okay, I know that you had quite a few people who wanted to speak about this the other day. Business owners, female business owners, minorities business owners.
Yeah. There were a lot of people there. And but to his point, there was the intent was for it to set goals based on whatever the need was. And but everybody that got a contract still had to be qualified, obviously, to be able to do the work. But the intent of that bill back then was to make sure that that you set goals based on what the needs are. And that's what this does. It asks for a study to be done to look at what the needs are and then satisfy those needs.
Okay. We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about your bill. You have the hands-free bill. You're looking at hands-free. And first, before we get into it a little bit, let's look at where we are right now with hands-free in Georgia. On July 1st, 2018, Georgia's hands-free law took effect. It basically bans cell phone use while driving. And if you're using hands-free technology, drivers cannot write, read, or send text messages, emails, social media content, or other internet content while on the road. Only voice texting is allowed. And Chairman Ginn, you wanted to allow cell phone users to be able to use it when they're stopped at stop signs and stoplights. Talk about that.
Yes, ma'am. And you wear the badge that they give you, and I'm really proud to be the transportation chair. one of the things in transportation is we try to keep Georgia moving, our people and our freight, safely. And I want to make sure that before we say anything else, I'm all 100% behind stopping those people that are moving and distracted, impaired, texting, whatever it is that they're doing. I want them to focus on their driving. I want people in Georgia to be safe. When somebody has an accident, there's injuries, there's time delays, there's a lot of problems that accidents cause. So paramount to anything we talk about is safety. When I look at what's going on with this bill, I can tell you that the language of the bill is at a full and complete stop. There's no way that a vehicle at a full and complete stop can run over anybody. When I start to look at this bill, I said, you know, what I want to do is to make sure that we all live our lives. If it was a perfect world, we wouldn't need telephones and we could just think our thoughts and every people would receive those thoughts. It doesn't work that way in real life. So for me, we have a lot of people that are addicted to their phones. I may be one of them, I'm not sure. So when you pull up to a traffic light or a stop sign or over to the shoulder of the road, you should be able to, while you're at a full and complete stop, handle your phone for a few seconds, receive a text message, send one back. It may be your spouse calling you, asking you to pick up a gallon of milk on the way home. Whatever the case is, and then before you move, put your phone back down, or better yet, have your phone mounted up close to the dash. One of the things that happens far too often, you've been in line before where there's a car in front of you, somebody's down here holding their phone at their knee. And when they do, they have no situational awareness. They can't see anything that's going on around them. Somebody honks the horn, you get road rage, they hit the gas, and next thing you know, they've either run into the car in front of them, or worse yet, they run over a pedestrian or bicyclist.
So you're thinking with this bill that won't happen because they won't have to hide it?
That's exactly right. You can go to about any traffic light you want to see here in Metro Atlanta, and there's somebody sitting there holding their phone, but they're hiding it from the police. Now, I'm going to tell you, and I support my law enforcement community, we have to enforce the laws. Right now, it's against the law for you to do this, and I don't encourage anybody to break the law. But I will tell you, because they can only write so many tickets in a day, the law enforcement, what we want to do is focus on those people that can kill you. That's anybody going from 1 to 100 miles an hour.
Okay, so you got a lot of pushback earlier I think it was earlier this week, or in the Senate Public Safety Committee. It may have been last week. Senator Randy Robertson, he's a former law enforcement officer, and he called it a dangerous piece of legislation. Several organizations oppose it, including the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. What do you say to them?
Well, I can tell you, we don't live in the perfect world. What I'm trying to do is make it safer, but I want our law enforcement community to be able to focus on those people that have a potential to kill you. And those are the ones that are moving and distracted, whether they're impaired, DUI, holding their phone, talking, whatever it is they're doing. If you're at a complete and full stop, you're not a danger to anybody.
You have bipartisan support on the bill. You have some Democratic signers, don't you?
Yes, ma'am. They are very excited to have, in just a few minutes, I had a lot of people that, man, I want to sign that bill, because they hear from their constituents. We all know what it's like to live a life. One of the things that unfortunately, the citation for texting and driving or being distracted holding your phone, a lot of times that's a full day's pay for a lot of our workers out here in Georgia. And for me, I don't want those people to be unsafe, and that's why you can only do it at a full and complete stop in the language of the bill that I've introduced at a traffic control device.
You feel pretty good about it passing?
I do. I believe the votes are there in committee. I have to get Chairman Albers to allow it to go to a vote.
That's it. All righty. I want to ask you about your supplier diversity bill. How are you feeling about it?
Well, we've been trying to, as you say, get it passed for a while. And this year was the first year we actually had a hearing. So I feel pretty positive that based on the conversations that we've had since the meeting the other day, that is going to get some traction.
It has to come out of subcommittee first.
It has to come out of subcommittee, go to full committee. But again, it's a bipartisan effort to make this happen. And, to get the study done to determine what the needs are and then satisfy those needs.
Okay, we're going to keep up with both of these bills and let people know, okay? I want to thank you both for coming on the show. It always goes so fast. And I want to thank you for joining us tonight for Lawmakers. You can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter at GPB News using the hashtag GPB Lawmakers. Also, don't forget to tune in tomorrow at 9 a.m. on your GPB station for Political Rewind, hosted by Bill Nagat. We'll see you again on Monday for Legislative Day 15. Have a good night.